Hi there, welcome to the Noah Presgrove Case. Today, highlighting key points and unsolved mysteries which have been ignored or avoided by a range of different people, those within the case and about. And I'll be highlighting the bullet points. I'll be sharing with you my thoughts, my side of it, what I know of, what I can remember, and additional screenshots as well, which either complement, reinforce, debunk, go against, etc. It's not everything, but it's just to get the ball rolling, because if there are certain subjects, areas and events in the case, and it's a grey area, it needs filling in with colour, it might help additional stuff along the way with what we've already covered. Retrospectively, looking back is still possible, and there's quite a few empty spaces. So join me today, and for those in the live premiere, welcome. Share your live reactions, chat box on the right hand side of the screen. I do have some little bullet points in front of me with the said events or possible events which happened, and that can include people, it can include location, before or after the death of Noah Presgrove, and how it can link into it all in some way. Credit to the individual that made the list, but I just wanted to do this to spread the awareness, because if anyone watching has answers or you've got your own opinions, questions, be sure to drop them down below under the video, whatever it is, because it might help and it might kick things off like a catalyst. And for those that are interested in videos like this and more and recent, you'll be able to find the full playlist of the Noah Presgrove case and the live stream what I did yesterday, top right corner where the eye symbol is. And if you want to support the channel, there is a PayPal link below and the channel membership link. So the order of how we'll do things, I'm just going to read each point out bit by bit, give you my thoughts about it, what I think and what I can remember, and then we'll transition on to some loose screenshots, kind of bringing it all together from different videos that I've done and material that I've got along the way. We'll see where it goes. So one of the first, and it's been labelled as taboo, one of the first taboo subjects is the Texas boys. And I can understand that in some way. The focus is either on Jack Newton, or it has been, or Caden Pressey. Then maybe Avery, maybe Carter, maybe Mikey, a little bit of Brylan, etc. Stephanie Milan, never really talked about. There's an exception there, I guess. Or Stephanie Milan's boyfriend that was present, an exception. Texas boys, it's been mentioned a lot, the term, but it's vague. We need to know who the Texas boys really are. What do they look like? Were they in any of the party footage, photos on any of the nights? And supposedly, there is an example, and I can show you that today. I did mention it beforehand in the first Caden Pressey Part 1, Never Seen Before, DM convos, summarised or noted and passed on to you out of respect for people's privacy. But now I can at least show one particular screenshot in which it just is Caden giving his suspicions about someone, and that someone being from his recorded footage at the party. I don't know if I've got like a more enhanced photo or not, but we'll just see what I can use in the moment, okay? But with the Texas boys and some of the other taboo subjects can link onto the side-by-side situation, the involvement of Texas boys there, the possible involvement in Texas boys and Noah's death from the attitude, mindset of Jack Newton that at one point believed it was either a semi-truck mirror that clipped Noah's head, caused the death, or if it was Texas boys and it was some kind of accident, something went wrong. And ever since, it's been leaning towards possibilities of an accident, leaning towards maybe Texas boys or a Texas boy driving, Noah in the bed, the back of the pickup truck as example, and then falling out, but unknown to the driver. That could occur as in Noah walking away from the party just to cool off, resting in the back of a pickup truck, passing out maybe, a Texas boy or two coming along, getting into that vehicle when leaving to go back home, heading north down the highway. Noah's woken up by the movement or noise, a bit startled, a little bit disorientated, dark as well. Can't quite figure out what's going on, standing up, the motion and movement. Any swerving or bumps could knock someone easily off balance, and if they're still a little bit drunk and groggy, falling out. Shorts catching on the side of the vehicle. Shorts stay on the side of the vehicle. Noah falls out. Not much damage to the shorts, but damage obviously to Noah when hitting the ground and rolling and then eventually stopping alongside the hard shoulder, and then the shorts eventually blowing off the vehicle in the breeze, the wind, and then collectively falling in the middle of the roadway. That's possible. It's a possibility. The involvement of Texas boys there who aren't directly responsible but wouldn't even know themselves because they were completely oblivious to the fact, or to the possible fact, in a theory-based scenario, that Noah was in the back of a truck. If that was the case. There's no cameras. People could say, I'm not involved in Noah's death because you're not aware, you weren't alert at the time, but you might have been, you just didn't know. It was an accident. But you're not really to blame either because you're not going to know someone's in the back. And with the lighting as well, and there's no reason to check the back of the truck with them. You're just not really going to know. So there's that. But you still got the importance of the Texas boys present before Noah's death. Would that be anything to do with confrontation with Noah? Would it be anything to do with any girl trouble? Does it just simply link back to just trying to figure out who the hell was at the party? So you can tick it off the list one by one. Even something as simple as that. When Texas boys arrived and when they left. Did any return back or did they go completely? And the individual names and identities of Texas boys. Did it say San Jose or something? Pepe? 2 to 3 groups or types of Texas boys or locations. Caden Pressey briefly and vaguely talked about it in one of his interviews. Might have been parts in True Crime. Wasn't too much information given. Now, is there a silence amongst Texas boys because either one, people within the case and families don't know much about them, so they can't really talk much about them? Or is it 2, Texas boys are significant in the case and other people know things, but they're not allowed to reveal it public? Let me know what you think down below. But have we seen any dark sides of the Texas boys? Not from what I'm aware of. Have we seen any vocality, vocalness? Anyone speaking out loud? Anyone threatening online loud that turned out to be a Texas boy? Or have they been pretty quiet? Seemed pretty quiet. If we don't know the names, not quite. What about the age range? What was the age of the Texas boys? Are all the Texas boys friends with Avery? I'm trying to trace it back to when Caden Pressey did his Partners in True Crime interview and worded it as Sunday night is when the real party started, heated up, more people came on down, the Texas boys. Kind of like Avery's lot. That, for example, Saturday was close friends all together hanging out. But then Sunday, Avery's other friends came on down who could be strangers to maybe Caden, maybe Noah, and so on. If they are Avery's friends, are they more or less likely to be of Avery's age or not? Granted, there were some people in the party footage that looked much older, but the reality is, you put a beard on someone, preferably a male, not a female, they're going to look a lot older than what they may actually be. Then the equivalent could be if you used to put maybe a certain level or amount of makeup on someone, like a female, they may look much older than what they actually are. They could be underage, but how they dress, how they look, how they appear, and how they try to present themselves and deceive others could appear much older. So adjustments can be made. Altering one's appearance can be done. Changing your voice or how you may type and talk can affect how people may perceive you in your age. In terms of the party, we're just basing it off the visual aspects. You had guys there with beards and Maybe the build as well, and they looked much older. Some people saying, oh, it looked really old. How true is it? What are their true ages? What's the average age of the Texas boys? Do they serve or pose as a threat? I'm not really seen anything like that to suggest it, but you've always got to acknowledge the possibilities. The link to the side-by-side rollover. Well, Jack Newton said 5 to 6 passengers, along with Noah Presgrove. Robin Smith made the reference of 5 or 6 Texas boys. And, just the number, the coincidence made me think, oh, 5 here, 5 there. Maybe it's the same lot of people with the side-by-side rollover. Granted, did a bit of process of elimination that at the possible timing of the side-by-side rollover, it couldn't have been Caden because he was supposedly asleep. Brylan, Mikey, Isaac asleep. Jack Newton supposedly asleep. The girls, couldn't imagine them getting side-by-side. They might be doing their own thing. So what other guys, what other males are left remaining? Well, if it's after 2 in the morning, how far after? Only because the likes of Ace Franco, trying to figure out what time did Ace Franco leave the party. One of Justin's nephews. Was it before 2 or was it after? Because how it's been worded by different people, I think Ace Franco's mother said, oh, it's a good thing he left early, Sunday night at some point. Correct me if I'm wrong. But then Justin was referring to, yeah, but my nephews, my people, they left before 2, so they're out of the picture. They're okay. They're innocent, simple as. But with the discrepancies, and if there's any other discrepancies in between, how long was Ace there for? Take in mind, Ace Franco, not a Texas boy, but another male that could have been involved in the side-by-side rollover, but I've not seen any indication of that. But the possibilities of Texas boys is on the table. 5 Texas boys mentioned by Robin, 5 to 6 males or people suggested by Jack Newton. Males, possibly, more than likely. Who are the remaining males that are awake at the party at that time of Monday? And likely it'll be the Texas boys. So it doesn't 100% reinforce it, but it just seems a bit more likely. Take in mind, there are some screenshots which we'll get to, but that's from other people's mouths. I just wanted to share it from my mouth of what I think and then the importance behind it. Okay, so the Texas boys play a prominent role in the possibilities associated with the side-by-side rollover, which involved Noah Presgrove, which is important. And then possibly links with when Noah was walking away to cool off and shortly afterwards Texas boys leaving, and unfortunately it's a screenshot which I no longer have, but I did see it with my eyes that Stevie Howard said, yeah, the cameras weren't working at the party house, they just weren't. But after Noah had walked away, the cameras magically were working and it recorded some Texas boys leaving just after Noah. I wish I had that screenshot, but I think it's been deleted. What I would say is, based on that and my memory, those Texas boys that were supposedly caught on camera leaving shortly after Noah had left, Noah going east, Texas boys following in the same direction, maybe to their own vehicle. Maybe they were leaving to go home. And just imagine if it just so happened to be that one vehicle that Noah had climbed into to rest, to sleep. Why would he not on the ground on the floor? Maybe because it was too hot, the ground. Or maybe there was those spiky objects about. Maybe he wanted a different place of comfort to sleep or rest, to cool it off. But the timing of it is important because if it ties in with Noah possibly being in the back of a vehicle, movement, accident, falling out on the highway, Noah would have had to have been passed out in a bit of a deep sleep long enough for the Texas boys to possibly come on down, get in the vehicle, clunk with the doors, turn the engine on, turn about, drive on, get onto the highway. if Noah was just simply resting and not fully asleep, just the sound of the possible Texas boys getting close talking could have woken Noah up, or opening the car door, shutting it, slamming it, turning the engine on may have been enough to startle Noah and to get out quick enough before getting to the highway. So the timing of when Noah had left at 3:30, the timing of when Texas boys shortly after, I don't remember it being mentioned. I'm not saying that if it all links that those said Texas boys specifically are guilty or are responsible, I'm not saying that. But they could indirectly, unknown to them, be caught up within it, unfortunately, as a possibility, right? So the importance of Texas boys is quite high up there, and high up there as well in terms of the mystery of why haven't the names been mentioned? Is it because they're underage so they can't be talked about public? And why is it that set of people? It's not just a collection, a conglomeration of friends. It's a specific set of people from a specific state, Texas. They call them boys, but are they really boys or the more young adults over the age of 18? Possibly. Why is it the Texas boys, as much as they've been talked about, they've managed to do a level of self-control and not really speak out to what I've seen and remember? But then the typical party goers from Oklahoma, what we've seen and heard, the familiar names, they've been dragged through the mud. They've spoken out at times. There's been some discrepancies. There's been some uncooperation or not quite synchronizing correctly. But Texas boys have just been almost like radio silent. Was there any Texas girls present at any point? I wonder. Just as a little sideline thing, as a possibility. But, you know, let's just say Texas boys were innocent, all of them. And there is a screenshot which can possibly reinforce that, but just from my thoughts, for now at least, there's no big deal with the Texas boys, and they're not really associated to the death of Noah, so they can be cleared. Can't the names at least be mentioned publicly just to clear it up? Or is it just easier not mentioning it because it's happened in the background with the authorities, it's been cleared, it doesn't need to be brought to the surface? But then again, if certain names were officially cleared, it would have been better then if at least the police could acknowledge it, possibly, even if it's just giving the first name, not the last name, just the first name. But, you know, the only name I've ever heard of is a person called Pepe, and it was Caden Pressey that mentioned that name. But the name Pepe has come up again in recent time to do with a screenshot by Caden. And we'll get to that a bit later. Next point that needed to be acknowledged is classified as a bit of a taboo subject. The location of Georgia and Breely at the time of when waiting for Alicia and Melissa to pick Georgia up. To try and summarize it and do it brief, from different perspectives and what's been said, from what maybe Alicia had said, speaking on behalf of Caden, which is a bit dodgy, to what Breely's older sister had said on Facebook. We'll base it off of that one. But it was around 2 a.m. or so when Breely's 2 older sisters came on down. Why 2? One of the sisters would drive Breely and Georgia back home. The second sister to Breely would drive Breely's car back home, right? So it means everybody gets back home and all vehicles return back safely. That makes sense. Kind of like, well, the reason why that happened as well is because Breely was drunk. So when leaving, it wouldn't be possible to drive back home. It wouldn't be safe. It wouldn't be practical. You'd get in trouble. Granted, there has been that talk online about supposedly Breely and Georgia showing up at the party already drunk, meaning drunk driving, which isn't good whatsoever. And that's before being supplied alcohol from the party. So what does that say about social hosting? That even if you followed everything correctly, what happens? And can I just throw this in very quickly? Let's just say social hosting was done above board. No rules broken whatsoever. You're hosting a party, underage people come on down already drunk, with alcohol, whether they've got alcohol with them in the vehicle or not, but they're drunk. They arrive at the party. What the hell do you do? Do you turn them away and say, nope, you can't be here, because if you are here and you're welcomed in, now you being drunk is now my responsibility, and now social hosting laws are broken, and now I'm a bad person because you got drunk elsewhere? You're going to drag me down? So I'll turn you away. You can go back onto the road, drunk, and then you endanger other people's lives and themselves. Yeah, they were safe coming on down. They got lucky. You tell them to go away. They might not be as lucky next time. You save yourself from the social hosting laws being broken, but then you put theirs and other people's lives at danger because you've turned them off, turned them away from the house because they're underage. You weren't anticipating them. You don't want to get in trouble. What do you do, though, then? What do you do if underage people who are already drunk show up at a party where there's older people? Do you turn them away? Do you welcome them in? Do you keep an eye out for them but keep them outside of the property and call their parents? But what happens if you don't have their phone number? Do you have to call the police? You know, what could have been done differently at this particular party which Noah attended, that party house? For example, Georgia and Breely showing up. What more could have been done? If anyone has any ideas, let me know below the ideal outcome and if it could have been applied to anybody else present. But we're specifically focusing on the highway situation, and why would they be waiting for Alicia and Melissa? Because, at least from how it's been said, and probably Alicia as well, likely in some screenshots, because there's a lot all over the place, isn't there? Where Alicia tells her side of the story, how things were going. That it was 12:48 in the morning, 00:48, Monday. Cade and Pressy takes a photo of Georgia sick, drunk, too much alcohol, shouldn't have done in the first place. Alicia, shocked, not happy. Alicia says to Caden, look after Georgia, make sure no one takes any photos. If she needs to go to the toilet, follow her there. An hour or so passing by, and based off the phone tracker which Alicia has of both of both Georgia and Caden, they're separated. They're in different areas. And at one point, I guess there's another screenshot where it shows Caden outside. Like, for example, 1:05 in the morning when Brylan slaps Noah and Georgia is elsewhere. So because Caden had failed to follow through with Alicia's wishes and request, Alicia said, if you don't call me back, I've called you, and if you don't call me back, I'm going to come on down. Or I'm going to contact George's mum, Melissa, and we'll come on down. And that's what obviously happened. Okay, that makes sense. Supposedly, Melissa picked up Alicia driving down the highway 40 to 45 minutes or so to get down the highway. And when so far down, no specific coordinates given, when so far down, they notice on the tracker app that Georgia was moving, as in a vehicle. And Alicia did mention in some comment message on Facebook, I believe, but as they were driving down, they actually passed by Georgia and Breely, Breely's sister driving. They actually passed by one another. Interesting how they were able to identify them quick, but to be honest, if you're looking at the tracker and it shows a big icon with the person's name or initials and it passes by you on screen, you don't need to look through the window of the car because you need to be looking ahead. But you get what I'm saying. They pass by one another. But how far down? Because what you got to understand, and this is where the important point is, to try and determine or estimate the location and how far away it was from Noah's body. Forget about the timing for now of that aspect of Noah, but the timing and the distance. From the timing and distance Melissa and Alicia have to cover in order to get down to the highway, somewhat close to the party house, but not too close, because it takes 40 to 45 minutes. It's been worded as they arrived at the highway at 3:15. Is that to be interpreted as parked up, waiting at 3:15 in order for Brearley, Georgia to show up, to pass by, to pull over? But how does that make sense? Because at least from how Alicia had worded it elsewhere, for Georgia and Brearley to pass by in the vehicle, pass by Melissa and Alicia, it means Melissa and Alicia are still heading north and still heading south towards Terrell, south towards the party house. Georgia and Brearley heading north. Okay. But it was mentioned that Melissa, when driving, and Alicia and passenger had to turn the vehicle around, turn around to then drive on and follow after them, almost like chase them down, but not literally. And I don't know at what point, at what time, but in that moment or so, shortly after, Melissa, not Alicia, because it doesn't show it on the call log, but Melissa making a call to Georgia, the daughter, saying, hey, we've just passed you. We're coming to pick you up. Not that we know what was actually said, but you could interpret that as part of the conversation on the call, right? Can you please pull on over? We're heading north now. So by the time Melissa and Alicia get back north down the highway, the way they came in the first place, catching up with Brearley, Georgia, and Brearley's sister, parking up on the side of the highway, getting Georgia out, getting into Melissa and Alicia's vehicle, then driving back home. And then, based on Alicia's call log, 2:42, contacting Caden Pressey to say, we got Georgia on the way home. Let's put it that way, on the way home. So it would mean that Melissa and Alicia would have had to have passed by Brearley and Georgia before 2:42 in the morning. And it was around 2 or just a bit before 2 in the morning, from what Brearley's sister had said, when they were leaving the party, or at least when the sisters of Brearley arrived, and then shortly were leaving around 2 or just before 2. 40 to 45 minutes of driving by Melissa and Alicia, driving down the highway. Give or take a bit of 5 or 10 minute time difference. Just before 2, Georgia and Brearley leaves the house. At what point do they cross paths with one another to pass by? Is it close to the party house, near to Noah's body, or where it was going to be found later? Or is it much further north? I don't see the whole point of Alicia mentioning 3:15, getting to the highway, or waiting at the highway at 3:15. First of all, why would you be waiting at the highway if you've already said that you passed by them? So you got to turn around, you contact them, hey, can you pull over? They've covered already enough distance heading north. You take some time to turn back round to then follow them after. The call's made, you tell them to pull over, they pull over, they're waiting for you, you're not waiting for them. And yet Alicia had worded it as, we were waiting for Georgia. You can't be. You can't be waiting for them if they've already passed you and then you want them to pull over, so then they do, and then they've got to wait for you to catch back up. So that's a bit dumb. And then the second point of, it can't be 3:15 because it was 2:42 when Alicia had made the call to Caden, and Caden had made it clear in the interviews that's the time of when Alicia was in the presence of Georgia. As in, we've got Georgia, we've collected her. We're on the way home. So 3:15 just isn't possible. 2:42 is, providing what Caden says is true in regard to the contents of what was said in the call at 2:42. take in mind the call log by Alicia, and I'm not going to share it because of YouTube guidelines, how they like to silence me and people in the background that like to take my videos down. But we saw that call log to do with Alicia, and it said at 2:42 a call made was to Caden Pressey. And Caden had said he was woken up at 2:42, and it was Alicia saying Georgia is on the way home. She's with us. Meaning by 2:42, Alicia and Melissa have already got a hold of Georgia, have already done the swap exchange, have already met at the highway before that. So the 3:15 time just isn't possible, right? So that's trying to clear that up there. But the true location, and it could be provided, but it hasn't been provided, it still doesn't link to Noah's death, in my opinion, because for Georgia and Breely to leave around 2 or before 2, and then for Alicia and Melissa to cross paths with them along the highway, there's less distance, less time taken for the likes of Georgia and Breely to pass by the spot of Noah's body compared to Alicia and Melissa, who are driving down, and it takes 40 to 45 minutes. But take in mind, at what time did Melissa and Alicia actually set off? They didn't set off the moment they noticed that Georgia and Breely were on the move. Because I said Alicia and Melissa had mentioned, more so Alicia, that when looking at the tracker on the phone, when they were already down the highway, that's when they noticed Georgia and Breely were moving in a vehicle. But to tie it back to a call made by Alicia to Melissa to say, hey, we need to go on down to the party, or at least drive down the highway to pick your daughter up. Alicia had messaged Caden at around 1:40, 1:41 or 1:42 about, hey, you're going to pick up your phone, you're going to respond, you're going to reply, because if not, I'm going to contact Melissa, action going to be taken. That's what happened. The call log by Alicia shows at around 1:51 in the morning, I believe. 1:51, Alicia contacted Melissa about we need to head on down. How long does it take after 1:51 in the morning for Melissa to pick up Alicia to then cover 40 to 45 minutes down the highway to get to a certain point in which then they crossed paths with Georgia and Breely? In other ways, Melissa and Alicia were already on the move, already on the way down to the party house before Georgia and Breely had left. So you might be able to figure that out just a little bit, as in where they could have crossed paths. Still, regardless of where they met down the highway, because 2:42 seems to be the end point, as in that whole situation of trying to get a hold of Georgia, everything happening before 2:42 in the morning. The time difference there, you could say, of when Georgia and Breely leaving to when Alicia made the call to Caden of, hey, we've got your cousin Georgia on the way back home now, that would be a time difference of 42 minutes. If Georgia and Breely was to leave 2 on the dot, 2 in the morning. If it's a little bit before, give or take a few minutes or so, still, you can round it up, 42 minutes, 50-minute time difference. 40 to 45 minutes of travelling by Alicia and Melissa driving down the highway. So based off the time difference of like 42 minutes, is there a way to pinpoint roughly where that spot could be on the highway? I'm trying to give you these calculations on the spot. You can apply it yourself if you want, but still, it all seems to have occurred before Noah had even walked away from the party house. So, based on that, there wouldn't even if they crossed paths, even if they parked up at the spot where Noah's body was to be, they wouldn't have seen anything at that time because it was before. Just as a heads up from the looks of it. But for Alicia to have mentioned 3:15, it's just a very random time, and it just seems a bit odd when Alicia had called Caden at 2:42 to say, we've got Georgia. You should know when you've got Georgia, and you should know the time when you've got your own phone record and you've got your own proof and evidence, but you choose to say 3:15 instead. What good does that do? By saying 3:15, you're making yourself much closer to the time when Noah had walked away. Still, 15 minutes out, but it just, you dig yourself into a bit of a hole. So that's that area. Not completely answered, but giving you a bit of depth and what I know of and timing. Area of the side-by-side ride and the area of the rollover. So if it's to do with the same exact vehicle and event, what was the side-by-side doing? Why was Noah driving it, messing about, playing around? Maybe. Drunk at the time, drunk driving, hence why it rolled over? Maybe. Maybe it's a good thing that Noah Presgrove didn't have his own vehicle, because, well, as people like to say, well, if Noah didn't return back to the party, he would have survived. Survived another day until maybe the inevitable if he went to another party, who knows. But when people say, if only Noah Presgrove returned back to the party in his own vehicle and there was no faults with the vehicle, that the time of when he wanted to leave, he could have left. He would have had the choice. He would have had his own vehicle. Really, then? Whether Noah was desperate or not to leave. If Noah had his own vehicle and had left early Monday morning, let's just say that, would the side-by-side accident thing have occurred? Maybe it wouldn't, but something much worse could have happened. If Noah possibly was unable to drive properly, hence why the rollover occurred, just imagine what damage could have been done if Noah was in his own vehicle driving down the highway. You think if Noah had his own ride, he would be safe and he wouldn't have been killed. But he may have killed himself down to reckless drunk driving if he was capable of rolling over the side-by-side. A similar rollover could have occurred on the highway, depending on his drunk driving and alcohol levels, and if anyone else was driving down the highway, other people's lives could have been put in danger. Yes, it didn't happen, but it could have happened. Not many people seem to acknowledge that. So just because you got your own ride doesn't mean to say that you're going to be safe. And, you know, even if Noah didn't consider driving because he thought, well, I'm too drunk to drive, but could somebody else drive me home? Kind of like the Brealey, Georgia situation. Would anyone have given him a ride back? Well, still, maybe not. So it doesn't really lead to any other positive. For as long as Noah returned back to that party, he was screwed. If he had his own vehicle, he would have been screwed, possibly, because he still probably wouldn't have been able to drive it because he would have been too drunk, and he may have realised that, so he would have sought for somebody else as a taxi service who probably would have denied him, so screwed. If by any chance Noah did decide to drive, and similar to the side-by-side rollover, if that occurred, would have been screwed. May have ended up dead just in a different way, but still inevitable death. Doesn't sound good, but you could base it off that, the patterns. However, in terms of a side-by-side, I don't know if it's the same thing as Jack Newton's. All I will say is there was that mention of Jack Newton and his Ford Ranger, which I don't know if it is a pickup or if it's a side-by-side, but Caden Pressey acknowledged Jack's Ford Ranger, the events of that Sunday, going into the evening, and they were basically driving about in the fields of the property area. Which field exact? Because it was like two, isn't there? One in front, one behind the party house. But as we were driving about, they were shooting animals. Quite reckless, probably not a good thing, to be honest. And did they shoot them clean? Who knows? Who did that consist of, then? What can we remember there? Jack Newton, Noah Presgrove, Caden Pressey participating as well. I think Brylan Sweat, Isaac Rojas. I mean, they did have firearms themselves, didn't they? So maybe they were used. Mikey Lair. Well, Mikey was there Sunday. Do we know what time he arrived? I can't remember. But would Mikey have participated in any of that? Something tells me maybe not. So a handful of guys. Do we know every single person? To be honest, Caden probably mentioned it a while ago in maybe Partners in True Crime. But it will be guys, probably just males. Familiar faces that we know of. And the main people like the Cadens, the Jacks, the Noahs. Hanging out, Ford Ranger, driving about in the fields, getting in and out of the vehicle. That's one of the reasons which was suggested, I think, by Alicia, that because Caden was getting in and out of the vehicle led to like grass vegetation in the shoelace or the inside of it. Same could have happened to Noah Presgrove if getting in and out of the vehicle with the vegetation of the grass and the ground. Okay, that could possibly take one thing off the list. That's fair enough. But did anything dodgy happen? No. Was there a culvert? Was there some kind of bump in the road? This is the thing. When Caden Pressey was talking about that Ford Ranger when it went out and when they went out shooting at animals, at the time there was no mention of it being in a field, but at a later point we did find out it was in a field. I can't remember who said it though, I'm going to be honest with you, but I have documented it on my channel in the past. But with that being said, it kind of made a bit more sense, driving on land on site of the property, a little bit more responsible, but still not good to be honest when shooting animals just for the fun of it. But I do remember Caden in the Partners in True Crime interview on the way back, because it was evening, getting dark, on the way back home or to the party house, either driving down a road, driving down something, and there was like a bump in the road or a gap, and they did some airtime and gauged it and jumped over and landed, and it was quite exciting. Would that have been on the highway? Probably not. Would it have been somewhere in the fields where there might have been a bump, a dip of some sort, and you could hop over it? Maybe. And I think Alicia had said that was why it was to do with the side-by-side rollover. It wasn't a rollover, but it was bridging a gap. I mean, it's two separate events, to be honest. But anyway, separate events with different people on different days and different vehicles. But what about the location? Is it the same? Specifically, the side-by-side ride, which Noah Presgrove was driving, 5 to 6 passengers, may or may not be Texas boys, driving about. How long for? That's important. It was Jack Newton that said it occurred around the pasture, round the back of the party house. Around the back of the party house, yes, you do have like a garden area, and then maybe a fence line. And then beyond that is the rest of that big field. Is it a wheat field? Could possibly be. Like what Sarah Long references a scenario one where Noah could have been and collecting teeth. You know, that weird situation. Documented on my channel, in case you're wondering. But first of all, where was the side-by-side? Where was it parked up? Does link back to Jack's. That side-by-side that rolled over, which Noah was in, is that the same side-by-side that was used Sunday, in which the guys were shooting animals and driving about in the field? Yes or no? Just for clarity there was that mention by Jack, who was told by Carter at a later point, because Carter was besides Jack in bed at the time of when Noah came on into the room to get the keys, supposedly. Carter awake or woken up, Jack left asleep. Noah got the keys, left, and then proceeded on. As for the time of it, who knows? But from getting into that side-by-side to getting guys on board to then driving about, where was the vehicle? Was it parked round the back? Was it on the front? Was it in a trailer? Was it in the barn? And how many minutes was spent driving about? 10, 20, 30, 5, 2 minutes? Because if it's happened round the back, the pasture, what's round there? Supposedly a trampoline, a small swimming pool with decking. That's a lot of obstructions round the back. And if there's a fence line as well, you might be limited for space and room. So if Noah is driving around the back and swerves or turns, did he have to try and avoid one of the objects to not crash into it? And if there's 5 to 6 passengers, does that exceed the weight load? Does it exceed the passenger load? The seats? If there's only so many seats, was 1 or 2 of the guys hanging onto the side of the vehicle? What was the weight distribution like? Was it even, or was it more on one side, which then could lead to that momentum shift and force? So if you do take a sudden turn and then another turn, and that momentum shift could easily cause it to roll over, right? And the weight of it. So that needs to be taken into mind, and the location of it, as in where it happened, because tracing it back to where it happened, can it justify as to why it rolled over? Any additional factors? That specific spot, if anything had happened, if you was to trace it back at the time or early on, would there have been any visible, noticeable evidence? Noticeable evidence of skid marks, track marks, ground turned up, ground disturbance, any little broken bits, any faint bits of blood on the floor. Got to make reference to, besides the location of it, Noah supposedly got like minor injuries from it, not broken, a bloodied nose, supposedly. But some other people from the dark side, memorable names, had mentioned it wasn't a bloodied nose, it was a busted lip. But then we've seen additional screenshots from other people, which I'll get to later, where they said it was a Texas boy that had an injury. Oh, a Texas boy. 1 Texas boy, 2 Texas boy, maybe a third, 4, 5. You can see how it can link back. And I'll show you the screenshots where it suggests that as well. But yeah, these events, people, moments have been talked about, but the details just haven't been given. And some of these events are before Noah's death, you know, like the location of Georgia, Breeley, waiting for Alicia. And how it's worded like that, that's how it was. It wasn't Alicia, Melissa doing the waiting, because they already passed by the girls. It was Georgia and Breeley doing the waiting, because they had to pull on over when Melissa urged them to by a phone call. Might have been hands-free, or maybe Alicia activated the phone and then Melissa was talking whilst Alicia was holding the phone. I'm sure there's ways about it. But yeah, 2:42 supposedly, and before that, side-by-side rollover. What time then? Before 2:42, after 2:42, but definitely before 3:30. And if the shower footage shows and is ever public and shows Noah alive and awake, all fine and good there, meaning the side-by-side wasn't the end of the world, wasn't that sinister. But at this moment in time, people will still be skeptical, which, okay, I understand. But the location, being able to pinpoint the location of the rollover, by pinpointing, you can determine or question who else was present. Would anyone have had a good view of it if they had been looking out through the window? Or if anyone was out on the front porchway, under the roofing, on the concrete patio area, would they have seen, or would it have been a blind spot around the corner of the party house? Was anyone stood around the back? What I do want to say is, and this could be another point, so the person that made the notes in the first place, one thing that is a bit of a mystery is there any party footage, snaps whatsoever of people round the back of the house? Not the front, not the patio, not the front porchway, but round the back of the house. Because it can differ from location to location, country to country, building to building, but sometimes the backyard will be more occupied than the front yard, depending what's going on. Sometimes you associate the backyard as more privacy, more activity, more partying, rather than on the front. Now, where they're located, it's quite desolate and empty, so they can really be anywhere and still have privacy for most part of it. But what are the features and attractions from round the back of the party house, supposedly based off the timing of it, supposedly? A swimming pool, decking, trampoline, you know, things like that. If it's hot, if it's warm, if it's uncomfortable, people need a shower, people need a wash. But before that, let's cool down. Let's drink some alcohol in a hot tub. Let's drink alcohol in a swimming pool or something. Let's sit around the decking and hang out. Let's splash water. Let's do a cannonball, jump into the water, splash the water up on people sat down at the decking as a prank. If any of those items were there, how the fuck were they not used? Or is it lacking context? Besides the side-by-side rollover, the location of what was round the back of the party house, how come we didn't see anybody interact with that stuff? Regardless of what age you are, if there is some kind of swimming pool and if it's in use, which is most important, and if it's hot or warm or uncomfortable, maybe you jump in it to cool down, to mess about. A pool, party. It's a party and there's a pool. Why not use it? Okay, maybe they did. So out of all the things that could have happened at the party, what, they didn't decide to record round the back of the house when there was things to do back there? Normal stuff, but just not recorded? I just find it hard to believe. There must be some lacking context in which, if filled in, it would be more understandable. If anyone can mention that down below, that would be much appreciated. Next point to move on to is Ace, Trent and Walter at the party. I'm going to be honest straight up with you. I've heard of Trent, I've heard of Walter briefly, but I don't know much about them, if anything. Is Trent and Walter linked back to Justin Roy's nephews? Yes or no? Ace Franco is. Ace Franco in 2025 with that police record of doing some serious stuff, harming someone. I think it was battery of some sort, usage of a firearm, discharge in a vehicle, violent, not good. Present at a party some years back, Noah present. Maybe Ace was okay then, things have changed since, but still, for someone to do what they did, and earlier, years before that, in the presence of Noah, unknown to Noah, maybe unknown to Ace himself, levels of danger, possibly. You know, when you look at other people as well, other party goers have been looked at, oh, speeding, oh, slap on the wrist, oh, they're invincible, oh, they've done something previously, but they've got away with it, oh, they're a bad person, oh, look at Caleb Newton and his Caleb and his, like the Warwick 2020 boat accident with that 7-year-old, or we'll focus all in on that. Okay, well, if you're going to do that, you might as well focus all in on the future and look back retrospectively as Ace Franco could have done, possibly capable of. If you're going to look at everyone else, look at Ace Franco as well. There is a difference though. When at the party, you're looking back before that, as in people's record before. It's already happened. With Ace, it hadn't already happened by then. It happened years on. That's the only little counterpoint, got to be fair there. But still, if they're capable of doing it, how far back does it date to when they were capable? And was it around the time of when Noah was there? Maybe, maybe not. Noah wouldn't know, but if he did know, would it be too late? But yeah. So when you get names like Ace, Trent and Walter, and it's like, wait, this many years on, and we're still hearing names for the first time, at least for me, with the exception of Ace, and for some of you hearing those names, we've not heard them before, we've not really seen them much before. What the hell's going on there? Is there any party footage material that shows them? Yes or no? How significant are they? And what day were they present? If they were there Sunday night going into Monday morning, they are pretty important, right? And what level of interaction did they play around Noah Presgrove? So there'll be other people who will obviously know more about Trent and Walter, but for anyone watching in the background and watching right now, if you know any details regarding Trent and Walter, providing it's above board and whatnot, leave a comment down below in the comment section in regard to maybe who they relate to, how they link to the case in some way, what day were they present, and do you know the age range of them? So I'm keeping it brief there because I only know so much, but with Ace being present and Justin Roy looking out for Ace as well as the other nephews, and by saying, well, you know, the police haven't interviewed them, so they must be okay, and they don't need to be looked into, that's all good and fine. Justin protective of his own, but maybe not so much of others. Does give some more the benefit of the doubt than others, maybe. Obviously with the discrepancies of time with Ace and when Ace actually left the party compared to when it's claimed when he did, there's messy situations there. And the longer they stay at the party, the more important they become in the case, don't they? So there is that. Next point mentioned is to do with the Quarry sand plant. That's near like the sand plank crossing. The sand plank crossing is basically where Caden Pressey was driving down the highway at 7 in the morning onwards, supposedly, from his timeline. Getting down to the sand plank crossing, where it looks sandy on the left, that dirt road leads down to the Quarry. Straight on is continuing north down the highway. And then east on the right, in parallel to the sand plank crossing, is a, I guess, publicly accessible back road, dirt road, which you take as a detour, turn a right, go down, take a left, then on your right, you're back on the highway. And Caden had to do that supposedly because the part of the highway and leading on to where Noah's body was closed off. Based on the timing and the discrepancies, a bit dodgy there, of course, because people have said it was ODOT that said it closed at 7:40 onwards or so, and Ken said, well, I left at 7, got down at the highway at 7:02, 7:05 in the morning. Regardless, shouldn't have been closed if ODOT closed it 40 minutes later, and Caden wouldn't need to take a back road off. But regardless of the timing, just that where Caden turned off to go down the back road, west would have been the Sandplank Crossing. The Sandplank Crossing is where some of the party goers actually stopped at when after or beginning of 4 in the morning up to 4:30, around that range, when people went out searching for Noah to see where he was. And some of them, the girls, supposedly assisted by the Texas boys driving girls, passengers, supposedly, going down the highway down to the Sandplank Crossing, only going so far down. And obviously beyond is where Noah was at, but the partygoers didn't go any further past that point. Now, if the geophone's GeoNet or the phone pings show that they were down the highway at that time and at the Sandplank Crossing, is it a big deal? If that's the furthest they got and they didn't go any further, you can't start saying, oh, well, it links onto the death or it links onto some kind of dodgy cover-up or something. Because if the furthest they ever went was down to the Sandplank Crossing, that's still too short from where Noah's body was at further down the highway. So it's not a big end of the world there. But still, just the location of that, where certain events had happened, I just thought I'd give you it. But with the Sandplank Crossing being close to where Noah's body was found at, and with supposedly the back at the party house and that field eventually leading down a pathway onto the Quarry area, how significant is that then? Maybe we look at that a bit later, or I refer back to that later. Is it something to do with industrial equipment, industrial vehicles, any turning at the Sandplank Crossing, and if Noah's nearby getting struck, injured or hurt by it? No, I don't think so. Because whilst you can say Noah's body was near to the Sandplank Crossing, not that close. Not that close. So, if anyone had any other ideas that instead of going down the highway, people ended up going down or across the field to get to the Sandplank Quarry, to go down the dirt road to get to the Sandplank Crossing to get onto the highway, but why exactly is a detour to do something dodgy? Work in progress that, but that's just one of the points that's been talked about. Whilst the Quarry may have not been talked about that much, maybe because people didn't think it was that significant, the Sandplank Crossing, not that significant. I've made reference myself early on in the case. When I did my map analysis early on, and I do it every now and then, I've always referenced the Quarry area. Made it significant, the importance about it, and the mystery it kind of holds. So I've not forgotten, I did acknowledge it early on, but maybe I guess not many people talk about it. And then The final taboo subject, the biggest one, and it seems like the most obvious one when you talk about a timeline, and that is what happened Friday and Friday night. Just Friday in general. That's the beginning of the party. You look at the news articles, you look at the documents and whatnot in between. It's officially described as a 4-day long party. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 4 days. So why the hell do people always focus in on Saturday onwards? You want to talk about timelines? The whole bloody point of a timeline is from start till end, start to finish, with a midpoint in between. The moment the party started, okay, Friday is the moment you need to focus on. Yeah, but Noah Presgrove didn't attend on Friday. But Noah Presgrove attended on Saturday, so that's all that matters. Is it really? Because for people that like to think it's a murder, a cover-up and foul play, and you think, or you have your suspects, you're suspicious of certain party goers, then why not focus in on those party goers that may have been present at the start on a Friday, that may or may not have had it premeditated or planned out by then, before Noah had even arrived, right? And what I do want to say is, okay, Jack was the one, from what Caden said in the police interview, I believe, Jack contacted Caden and said, do you want to come on down? I'll pay for your gas money. Didn't end up happening. Okay, Jack, best friends with Caden. Noah, best friends with Jack. Noah, simply friends with Caden, and vice versa. So you see the friendship status there. But for Noah to come on down on the Saturday, how did Noah find out about the party? Did Jack call him to come on down in the first place? Yes or no? It was a tone and atmosphere met the same way as in on the Sunday in the afternoon as well, when asked to come back. Desperation or not, just a little side point there. But regardless, if people think there are certain suspects, dodgy people in on it, look back at the timeline of them. It doesn't have to be the timeline of Noah. It doesn't have to be the timeline holistically. It could be the timeline of key individuals. Key individuals that were present on Friday, because that was the day of when the party started. So of course there would have been people there. And of course those that lived there at the time, Logan, Avery, Carter, maybe Jack as an exception because of, you know, boyfriend, girlfriend, Carter and Jack relationship, coming on down a bit early the day before, getting things ready, prepared, set, who knows. A more smaller casual meeting. Saturday, more familiar faces coming together. Sunday, free for all, anyone comes. It was, I think it might have been Instagram by Avery or somewhere online, announced publicly, come on down to the party, you're all welcome, anyone. Interesting. But when was that announcement posted online? When was that invite done? Was it done immediately on the Friday when the party started? Or was it announced more so as an invite on the Sunday? Have your own little private party Friday to Saturday, and then Sunday, Monday, anyone can come on down, and those that you're friends with, but strangers to the others. Maybe. Possibility. I can't remember the date of when the invite was made public online. But still, some amount of people present on Friday. Caden Pressey in the police interview said he was there Friday, but in Partners in True Crime he said he arrived on Saturday. So that's a problem. You can't be there Friday and Saturday if you say that I got there for the first time on Friday. Oh, I got there for the first time on Saturday. One or the other, right? If Caden had said, oh, I returned back to the party on Saturday, that could imply, oh, you may have been there Friday then and did something in between. Even that would have been better worded, but it didn't turn out that way. So, yeah, Noah Presgrove not there on a Friday, but other people present. And if other people are tied in directly or indirectly to Noah's death, if they're there Friday, it needs to be looked into. The atmosphere as well, just as a comparison tool. What was the atmosphere like when Noah Presgrove was there compared to when Noah Presgrove was not? Did it differ much? How did people react and respond when Noah was there compared to when he wasn't? At the end of the day, a timeline does the whole thing. So why are people only focusing on 3 of the 4 days. Makes no sense. I know people still say because the timeline only starts when Noah arrived. But if anyone's involved, any other people, and they were there before that, it needs to be included as well, such as Friday. So, with that being said, that's just my analysis. What I want to transition on over to now briefly is just some loose bits of material, screenshots, which kind of fill in some of the areas of the bullet points what we've looked at, and it might help in some kind of understanding. Let's head on over. Okay, so the first screenshot is just like what I was referring to earlier with the notes, and maybe there has been deflection at times by people in the case avoiding answering simple questions to simple events, which has made it more complex and more suspicious. And when people deflect, it's because they don't want to admit the truth to something. They're too afraid of a particular thing coming out, so they try and swerve the answers to questions elsewhere. The other little thing is a person inquiring about the sandplant crossing, the sandplant itself, the equipment located there because it's close to where Noah was found. But what type of equipment would be associated or linked with Noah's death? Certain equipment leads to certain injuries caused. Depends. And that the back pasture, the party house, leads to the sandplant. You probably could check that out on the map as well. And to be fair, in some way or another, I've already done a map analysis. We followed those tracks, those marks, whether it be near to the house or further down the bottom end, and pathways, whether it be pathways on foot or by vehicle, do lead to the quarry. So it's something to acknowledge. But, you know, you've got your land. Do you own the quarry as well? Maybe not. So it's probably private, whether it be gated, locked, maybe. But this is what needs to be acknowledged, and it's quite important, right? So when talking, and I can go back and forth possibly, when talking about Texas boys, one Texas boy supposedly is there in shot. Take in mind that this is from Caden's publicly released little video taken at 10:50 p.m. Sunday night to show to Alicia to say, hey, here's Georgia, here's Breeley, all in the house, all safe. And then Caden pans around close to the TV. And as he pans around to the right in the corner of the room, you got some guys present, but we've never seen before. And to be honest, it's actually brighter, this one, because you can see more people. You got a guy on the couch with a white baseball cap. You got a cross in the background, and then there's at least 4 people in the background. One with a white baseball cap and a salmon pink type top. Another guy sat down in a chair beside him in the green top. Looks quite hairy. Then there's a guy with a bit of an afro or some kind of dodgy haircut. And then beside him is the one highlighted in a circle. Bit misty-like in terms of the lighting. Looks to be dressed in black. Has some kind of dark baseball cap. That, supposedly by another individual in the community, has said that individual circled is known as Pepe Guam or Guam. Pepe, as in one of the Texas boys. As we said, Cade and Pressy mentioned the likes of Pepe as an example name. So it could well link all together. And why is it significant? Because there's been a silence on who are the Texas boys. And if this is an example of one of them who was present, and with this footage being Sunday night, going into Monday morning, that likely would have remained. And why else is it important? A Texas boy like Pepe. What does Caden think? His attitude, his instinct at the time. Well, Caden said, this dude, supposedly Pepe, supposedly a Texas boy, I just had and have a bad feeling about that guy. The fact that Caden Pressy, October 2nd, 2023, said, back then at the party, I had a bad feeling about that guy. Right? Worrying, isn't it? But furthermore, for Caden to retrospectively say that, but in the moment, in October, yeah, like a month on since Noah's death, for Caden to say, I have a bad feeling. That means that Caden had a bad feeling at the party, as what Pepe was capable of, maybe. And then past that point, past Noah's death, a month onwards, Caden still has and had a bad feeling. Past and present. Interesting. So does Caden know or feel things other people don't? What did Pepe, this supposed Pepe, do at the party in order to get Caden to think, oh, this guy's bad. This guy's bad. But this is all within the same conversation DM as when Caden had said, I think it was actually Travis Monson that took Noah out. Travis Monson says he wasn't even there on the Sunday, on the Monday onwards. Travis was there Saturday and that was it, supposedly. So why would Caden think it was Travis Monson then, if Travis wasn't even there? But a guy like Pepe was. This is what I don't get. Caden says, yeah, Travis, I think, is the one to do something to Noah. Oh, but by the way, there's a guy called Pepe, and I've got a bad feeling about that guy. I've got more of a bad feeling about Pepe than Travis, but I think Travis is the one to have possibly killed Noah. What is that reasoning ability? Weird. Now, and as you see there, Travis Monson's response. Well, I don't know where I need to go or what to do. I was there the night before, as in Saturday, but I didn't go to the one that it happened at. As in, he didn't go to the party of the same location on a different day, like Sunday, or more so Monday on the day it happened, as in Noah's death. Well, that's not me, because I can promise I wasn't there. And if I was, the pictures that are from Saturday night, not Sunday. There we go. Is this good enough? Well, it's in a way, yeah. Because this is all Travis has said. We don't have lots of discrepancies by the same person, do we? And furthermore, there is party footage to prove Travis was at the party, specifically Saturday. And only Saturday. Ties in with what's said here. Ties in to some extent with what Caden had said in October of 2023 about Travis and Colton showing up on the Saturday, returning back on the same day. Even though Caden had said in the police interview of 2024 that Travis, Colton returned back on the Sunday. Well, discrepancies there, not possible. Odd, unusual. Next slide. Moving on to the Texas boys situation, kind of like what we had at the start with that there, Texas boys. Just get back to it. Robin Smith said, the LE law enforcement did tell me the Texas boys have been cleared. I don't remember which podcast we talked about this on, or when exactly, but they were cleared. Do I ever remember Robin Smith on a podcast talking about it? No. What podcast have Robin been on? Parts in True Crime, but it wasn't mentioned there. One Crime at a Time, TikTok live stream, maybe. But that was taken down. It wasn't public anymore, so that's unfortunate. But yeah, supposedly Texas boys, all of them, supposedly cleared, and the LE told Robin Smith that. But the police have never publicly put it out there to spread awareness that people have been cleared from the case. What's going on? Does anyone know? Interesting. Any other additional stuff? Jan Fiorillo did say at the time, do you know if they meant all the Texas boys that were aware of at the time, or if any additional Texas boys have been identified since they told you about the originals being cleared? Fair enough. And Robin said there were 5 in total, 5 Texas boys in total. They knew of them all at the time, and they've all been cleared. So does that mean out of the 30 to 40 party goers that were all there at some point accumulatively over time, over the 4 days, but there was only ever a total of 5 Texas boys present at the party, and that was it? And all 5 were cleared? That's how it comes across in a way. Professional feed from Reddit, also known as Robin Smith, said, and this is in regards to the side-by-side rollover, they swear that it was just tipped on its side and that Noah wasn't hurt. Jasmine said one of the Texas boys got a busted lip, but that's it. She also told me that when she showered him, he did not have any head injuries, as in Noah. No scrapes, marks, nothing. But then 2 other kids told us different stories about who showered him, so I've no clue who was lying. You got to think of the punctuation, the sentence structuring as well, because it says Jasmine Milan said one of the Texas boys got a busted lip. But all we've heard about online, it was all about Noah getting either a bloodied nose, what Caden said, or a busted lip. But supposedly, more than one person minor injured. Minor injury. Interesting. I mean, yeah, it can happen, but we don't get the clarity on who the other people were, passengers, and what condition were they in, and how did they feel about it? Were any of them a bit annoyed with Noah, you know? She also told me that when she showered him, as in Noah, no head injuries, but no mention of anything as in, but Caden said he saw Noah a little injured with blood. So why is there a discrepancy there? Either Noah was slightly injured or he wasn't. Either Noah had blood on him or he didn't. Either way, it appeared Noah was alive and okay. There's no need to lie about a minor injury. What next? Someone's at a party, they get a paper cut. Oh yeah, 50% of people say Noah had a paper cut. The remainder say Noah did not have a paper cut. What's the point? But yeah, all Robin was saying here at the time is from what she's been told by other people. And that's all you can do, and learn. And it was mentioned again by Robin Smith in her own account, because on Reddit you can't have your own real name or so. On Facebook, Robin Smith said, "We were told one of the Texas boys got a busted lip in the side-by-side wreck, but that was the only injury." You know, Caden Pressey said that Noah was the one that got injured. So that's interesting, isn't it? Why is it so hard to understand who was injured and who wasn't? It's not that big of a deal, not that major, but it's been turned out to be a right mess. To say one of the Texas boys, at least one of the Texas boys was injured, meaning the other Texas boys were not injured, meaning for them to be grouped and associated with this one Texas boy that was injured, all within the same event, meaning they were all involved in the side-by-side rollover, meaning that it seems very likely that the passengers, the 5 to 6 people, were Texas boys, maybe 5 specifically, and like when Robin Smith said, the 5 in total, they knew of them all at the time, that they were cleared and they were Texas boys. 5 of them, 5 cleared and 5 present during the side-by-side rollover. One out of the 5 got injured with a busted lip. Do you see how you can start tying it together? Just makes it a bit clearer and easier in a way. And then we've got Alicia at one point in the past. The video of the wreck that was after dark, where Caden was shown a screenshot of with a timestamp which was described as 2:40 in the morning, which is hard to believe Caden was not present for. Noah was shown smiling with a busted lip. Oh, Noah has a busted lip. Alicia says Noah had a busted lip, but Caden said Noah had a bloodied nose. 2 different injuries, pretty much. Unless the busted lip, the blood was on the upper lip close to the nose and Caden just assumed it was a nose injury rather than a lip injury. Maybe. But, you know, Robin Smith said, well, we were told that it was only one Texas boy out of the other 4, or out of the 5 in total, that were injured and no mention of Noah. And Alicia's saying, no, it was Noah, but it was a different injury. So we don't even know who was injured and who wasn't. How incompetent is that? But besides that, Jack Newton was in the background of the video. I thought Jack was supposed to be asleep. Those were the only people in the images shown to Caden. Someone was taking the video, don't know who. So how come Caden didn't acknowledge to police or anyone in like the interviews about Jack visible in the background then? Weird. Okay. What else do we have? Jack Newton. No, they even took my Ranger into evidence and released it because they said it had nothing to do with no died. No, because there was a zero traffic through that area. But there was traffic there, according to Terrell Store cameras. Maybe down there, but not further on. I'm telling you, it was either Texas boys or the semi-driver, and I've already messaged the semi-driver asking if we could talk. And did that ever happen? But that was just a random little screenshot there. All in all, hopefully enough people see this video, and be sure to hit the thumbs up, share the video, also to get that awareness spread of key events, moments and people and times and stuff of what supposedly had happened, what went down, but not been described enough, still remains somewhat vague, and the suspicions or intrigue of why is it kept this way. If it's not that significant, if it's quite simplistic, and if it's not directly tied to Noah's death, it should have been cleared up already by now. And the excuse of, well, it doesn't matter, so it doesn't need to be explained. Well, look at what it's caused. It needs to be cleared up. It needs to be resolved. So if anyone has answers, additional points, leave your comments below. It is important and appreciated. My name is Warlike Raf. Join me next time with whatever video that comes. I believe tomorrow I will be covering the Kenny Veach case because there is breaking news there, very important. And then the day after, I'll try and get back to Noah Presgrove. So thanks for watching. Goodbye for now.